What's up, everybody? Welcome into Group Chat Football Live. I am your host, Peter Ariz, alongside D Money. We have a huge show lined up for you today as that portal, man, it's opening up this week, and we're going to keep you guys very updated on everything that's happening. So hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. But today, we've got some recruiting news to get to. We do have some portal stuff to talk about also, but a lot of recruiting action here across the country. I think we should start with Bill Belichick and North Carolina picking up a talented duo out of the state of Mississippi.
Yeah, and we've talked a lot about how North Carolina wants to keep the best players home, but they are also expanding the map. We've seen them go in the Northeast. We've seen them go into the state of Florida here, the Deep South, getting not one, but two players from the state of Mississippi, increasing their overall skill level. And let's start with Omari Johnson out of Jackson, Mississippi, four-star player, 89th ranked player in the country, according to the composite. Chose UNC over Mississippi State, so the hometown school, losing out. 6 foot, 170. He's listed as a receiver, but you pointed this out when you looked at the pictures he posted. He's in the DB stance. You hear him talk. He's saying he committed as a cornerback. Could also play safety, but says it's easier for him to move from corner to safety than vice versa if it comes down to it. So he's open to both, but he will be a defensive back.
You see him here with Coach Mondo Hawkins as well. That's who he tagged here in the photo. That's who's there to his right in the photo. So, looks like he's picked up as a defensive back, even though 247 Sports has him as a wide receiver.
And by the way, talk about the expanding the map, going all the way to California for a lot of defensive backs, as you see with Coach Mondo. So Cali, East Coast, Deep South here, all over the map for Bill Belichick and Mike Lombardi and the whole crew. Omari Johnson said he committed to UNC at the airport. He couldn't leave without doing it. He has two teammates also that are officially visiting UNC next week, and talk about Darian Albert, TJ White. He says he's going to recruit those guys, and he says, why not run it back at the next level and bring some Mississippi swagger to Chapel Hill? I know Bill Belichick likes hearing that.
Well, and the other thing too, is I pull up his DB film here, is he hadn't uploaded anything on a Huddle for a year plus, and then 5 days ago you see DB film pop up. So makes you wonder, is Coach Belichick and Coach Lombardi over there, it seems like they're really doing their evaluations here.
Yeah, and there was a manual released. Maybe we'll talk about it on a future show. There was a manual released from the Giants, a Bill Belichick kind of personal scouting manual for defense that he wrote when he was with the Giants back in the early 90s, late 80s. And it recently resurfaced, and you could tell a lot of the things that he said in that book he stayed true to with the Patriots. And one of those things is cornerbacks. He likes guys that can play the ball, find the football in the air, play man coverage. And clearly, as you see right here, this guy can find the football, two-way player, also wide receiver, but going to focus now on defensive back. So Bill Belichick knows what he wants in defensive backs. This guy's got length. He's got athleticism, but I think more than anything, he has what you're seeing right here, the ability to play the ball, to read the quarterback, and to make big plays.
Yeah, the ball skills are evident. You see another one here as well. So scoop that one. Looked like it was about to hit the ground. So and then with the return as well. And he's got some good size to him, as you can see here on this tape.
Yeah, and look, both of Bill Belichick's sons coaching on the defensive side of the ball, so it's a family affair on that side. I think that's what, to me, where you're really going to see an identity that looks familiar to Patriots fans, because the offense, Bill Belichick's offense, so much of it was about Tom Brady for so many years. And you saw kind of different things, guys come and go. It's hard to say what his offensive identity is. Defensively, we know what he wants. He wants a lot of size up front, which you've seen UNC add big bodies both in the portal and recruiting up front in terms of defensive linemen, bigger linebackers than maybe other people like to use, and then cornerbacks and safeties that are smart, that are versatile. We've seen guys play both ways at the NFL level for Bill Belichick. So who knows if we see some of that here with some of these guys, where you see guys play both ways. It's not impossible. If it happens to anybody, it'll happen for Bill Belichick. But I think with this kid, that ability to find the football stands out amongst everything else.
So Darian Kirksey, the next one we'll look at here, and this is a guy from Mississippi as well. He says here, after talking to Mike Lombardi, UNC GM, I've decided to shut down my recruitment and commit to UNC football, Chapel Hill. I'm home. And that was interesting to me, D, that he said after talking to Lombardi, of course, general manager, he committed. So it seemed like, I don't know if it was that conversation that won him over, but it was interesting that he committed to the general manager, which I think we'll see more of this moving forward. Obviously, Coach Belichick very involved in the recruiting side, as we've seen early on here. But at the same time, I think that Belichick, coming from the pros, is going to let his personnel department handle the personnel things, and he'll be there to evaluate and be hands-on with everything, as we understand he was during his time with the Patriots. But everyone has their role, and you see here that Lombardi is very hands-on in this process, as we would have expected.
Yeah, Darian Kirksey, a major get, 6'2", 195 from Gulfport, Mississippi, 3-star player. But you see Ole Miss involved, the local school, Arkansas, also involved. So choosing UNC over Ole Miss, like you mentioned, committed to Mike Lombardi. But and this is the same thing you heard from Amari Johnson, the NFL background, and we've heard this anytime we do a UNC video, whether it's a portal kid or high school kid, they all mention that the NFL background, being able to be prepared for the NFL. And Kirksey said, I feel there's the best opportunity to go to the NFL playing for Bill Belichick. I know for a fact he'll have me prepared. It's not even just about football. He'll teach you mentally. You will just be ready for anything when it comes down to it. And the crazy thing about this commit is he had a business set up that he couldn't make, still hasn't been on his official, and he just committed kind of off faith, right? So this is someone who really wants to be at UNC. Didn't even need to see it. Obviously, when he sees that campus, that's usually a pro for UNC. So I think that'll kind of get him even further committed. But man, when you look at this guy, the size, I think, stands out, getting close to 200 pounds, playing with a lot of physicality. You need somebody who you could trust over the middle. I'll say Bill Belichick's had kind of a checkered history with receivers outside of the slot guys. He's had struggles finding what kind of outside receiver he wants. But I think this kind of player is a really, really good fit at the ACC level. Kind of reminds me of Fields from Virginia last year. Just a Malachi Fields now at Notre Dame. Just a big body guy who can make plays vertically, who can run routes, and should be ready to play at a pretty quick pace given his size and the fact that Mississippi, these guys are not playing bums. This is not prep school football, man. Oh, look at this blue field.
Yeah.
I didn't know they had those in Mississippi.
Yeah, and you see him getting involved in the return game here.
Yeah, the versatility there. But you see, again, broken tackle. Here's another one, broken tackle. Not going to be the biggest burner in the world, although you're seeing here the ability to pull away and return kicks. So I don't want to limit the player, but
Meridian there, yeah.
I don't want to limit what he's capable of doing, because you see him again on these returns, but it's that tackle breaking. And to me, strength's the most underrated trait in a wide receiver. You look at teams like the Rams that really prioritize strength. You need to get off coverage. You need to be able to catch the ball in traffic. You need to have that core strength and balance so you're not getting knocked around, because these fast receivers that are 150-pound track stars, they look great in 7-on-7. They look great in their highlights, but when you're playing real big boy football, look at that. And then the move inside, some quickness. And then again, you see him breaking tackles, dragging guys. That, to me, plays at any level. I think it's the most underrated trait in a wide receiver is that physical strength. Look at guys that make it in the NFL. A lot of those guys have physical strength. I think of another Mississippi receiver. I'm not comparing them and saying they're the same quality, but A.J. Brown, a guy about that size who was very at high school from Mississippi, very effective using his strength. In this case, Ole Miss finishes second. UNC comes out on top, landing Kirksey.
And just taking a quick look at the Tar Heels class right now, D, ranked 19th in the country, now 10 commits, only one 4-star. But I think if you're a Tar Heels fan, you got to feel pretty good with a top 20 class at this stage. Again, 10 commits, good solid number. But I personally think that if there are, really good early returns here in season one, Carolina could finish this year off with a strong class. And you look at this as the foundation, the base of your class, with guys that obviously we've talked about, they've made evaluations on. So
yeah. And by the way, this is the 247 composite. But some of these, you mentioned there's only one 4-star. Omari Johnson, he's a 4-star on the composite, not on 247. So the rankings differ. But you look at some of the locations. We talked about this a little bit earlier. So North Carolina, Mississippi, Massachusetts, California, Maryland, Mississippi, New York, New York City area, California, Maryland. So this is all across the board, from the Mid-Atlantic, from North Carolina, the Deep South, the Northeast, the West. I'm sure you'll get some Midwest in there before it's all said and done, maybe for some of these big offensive linemen. So you are seeing an expanded map, courtesy of Mike Lombardi, Bill Belichick, and that national brand that they really believe in. You saw Florida. Again, they landed some Florida guys last class. I expect them to land a few Florida guys in this class as well. This is going to be a complete recruiting map for the North Carolina Tar Heels.
Well, I don't think it's just the national brand that they believe they have. They're coming from the NFL, where you can grab players from wherever you want in the NFL. You're not limited to a regional base, right? So they say, man, there's good players everywhere. We're going to flip over every stone and make sure that we are finding the diamonds in the rough. Yes, it's 2025 here. You can't, there's only so many guys really, I think, falling under the radar when it comes to recruiting these days. Not to say that there's not 2 and 3 stars that are going to be top picks in the draft. Look at the number 1 pick in the draft this year, Cam Ward. It was not a big recruit whatsoever, right? 0 star. So it's still true, but I think that part of it and trusting the scouting and evaluations that they're doing as a staff. But we'll keep you guys covered here on Group Chat Sports. Carolina fans, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. The portal is gonna be an interesting time for them here coming up, D, because they didn't make too many big splashes, last portal time around. But now that they've had some time to be there as a staff, assess what they have on the roster, and I would say understand that they have these connections with agents from their time in the NFL as well. A lot of these discussions I would think are happening.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about 19 additions, but are they the truly impactful guys? Some of them will be, but in terms of ratings, I think they came in and triaged and said, there's a lot of work to do. We need to get bigger. We need to bolster these lines. We need to get a quarterback to compete with Bryce at that position. So they brought in guys that can play, but they weren't out there landing the marquee names. And I think now that you've brought in 19 guys, you've built a team that can at least get through a spring practice. Maybe you'll see more cherry picking, I think, from UNC for those 1 or 2 or 3 really impactful, high money guys that can make a big difference.
So right now, the number 1 recruiting class in the country belongs to the USC Trojans. Made a big move to get a general manager in the offseason here, and it's paying dividends. Defensive line class today added another with Jake Johnson from Prosper, Texas. And as I pull up the film here, this is a guy who not super highly rated, right, at a 3-star on the composite and on 247's rankings. But you see the track background, and you see some of the stuff on tape that you could see why USC has some interest in adding this guy to a very strong defensive line class already.
Strong class in general, and I think you're seeing Chad Bowden's impact on this class, right? Because not only are you doing a much better job of keeping the best players home, which was a major focus, keep the best players in California, I think you're also seeing just some national scouting where you're really scouting guys. That's why they pay. You don't just get a GM because he's going to help you land the best players in the country. That's a lot of NIL. It's a lot of head coach. It's a lot of other things besides position coach, recruiting skill than the GM. One of the competitive advantages the GM gives you is the ability to scout. I think that is what you are seeing here with Jake Johnson. Not that he is a total sleeper. I mean, this is a guy who has big schools after him. But really, with talking about North Carolina, SMU, who's in the playoff, Wisconsin, TCU, which is the local school. But what you're seeing is scouting, and it reminds me of the wide receiver they just took from Texas, who with Cohen Brown, who we did a video on from Waxahachie, Texas. Somebody who had
was it Corey Brown?
Cohen Brown.
That's right.
Yeah. So he had some track numbers. He had production. He played in very good competition, and then Bowden saw that and said, listen, I know we're focused on California, and they've landed 13 players from the state of California already in this elite recruiting class, but that doesn't stop them from going to Texas and saying, let's get somebody who maybe this guy goes to TCU and he develops into an NFL player. We see those guys all the time, or they go to Baylor, right? And then they're in the NFL, and you're wondering, why didn't Texas go after him? Why didn't Texas A&M go after him? Well, USC is trying to get in on that and do some scouting and get a guy like this who plays offense, he plays defense, he plays special teams, he's flexible.
Flexible, man. That was the main thing I saw with him.
Playing, they're seeing him on special teams. I think that's key. He also is a good offensive lineman. That's really how he started playing. So he's still trending up as a defensive lineman. You see him here stout in the point of attack, using his hands, just bringing a physical brand of football from Texas to the West Coast. This is a team and a program who, I don't think I'm going to offend USC fans by saying this, they need to get more physical on the lines. I think the biggest difference between what you saw at USC when they were dominant and what you've seen in USC when they've been highly inconsistent is that toughness and physicality on the offensive and defensive lines. I think a guy like this helps bring that to you, along with the upside. He's got power in his hands. He's a shot putter. Plays every unit. But you see some movement skills, but really I think you see just a really solid football player who, as you put more weight on him, and he's not small, but put some more weight on him, he can bring a physical presence to you on that defensive line.
Yeah, I really like this pickup, the flexibility as we were talking about a moment ago. I mean, that's what I see with him at his size and the motor. And look, right now he's primarily just using a power rush, a bull rush. So once that arsenal moves can open up, I mean, it'll be really nice to see. But just the pure power at the point of attack, like we were talking about as well.
Play some tight end on offense just to go to the flexibility. Some more blocking tight end, but who will line up
look at him. Look at him bend the edge there. Yeah.
Yeah, you see the flexibility, man. I'm a big flex. A lot of this you could just see from the stance sometimes, particularly with linemen. You see the stance and you see what kind of flexibility they have in getting off the ball. Over 41 feet in the shot put, so he has some ability there. And you look at this defensive line class, man. Talking about Samote Kotoanga, Jamion Winfield, who's not originally from he's not originally from Texas. I think he's originally from the deep South. But you go into Texas and land a highly coveted player in Winfield. Tom Topoi, who we talked about a ton. We did a video on him. Love his game. I think he has more talent than even his high rating. Braden Jones, Andrew Williams, Malik Brooks. This is a loaded defensive line class going back to the days of Patterson, Cody, Udezi. Real USC football starts up front. Offensive line they're working on. Defensive line, I think, is at a tremendous place as we sit here April 7th with the USC Trojans. And there's a reason why their recruiting class is ranked number 1 in the country as we sit here April 7th. This is not going to necessarily boost that rating, but it's not just about getting all the stars. You did not get Chad Bowden just for the stars. You got him to evaluate, and that's what this kid is.
Well, and you mentioned the O-line. I'm looking at their commits here. They're 2 lowest rated guys on the composite for 247 here are offensive linemen, but let's look at their size here real quick. You got 6'6", 350, and I haven't watched either one of these, but I would imagine as both of them are commits in the last month here, like these are recent evaluations, right? And you're looking at 6'6", 350 for John Fafita, and then 6'7", 290 for Chase Dennis. So, or Denise, I don't know how to say it, but we should take a look at those guys in another video, D. But I would imagine those traits are pretty good at that size right there.
Yeah, and then look at where they're from: San Diego and San Francisco Bay. So keeping it local, keeping California kids home, I think is critical. But then also, like we're talking about here with Johnson, going out of state and landing guys that are undervalued, maybe even by their own schools, which we see all the time. There are tons of Texas kids drafted every year. They don't all go to Texas. They don't all go to Texas A&M. So I think that's a big part of it.
Having our knowledge of University of Miami, the 2 guys that are going to be the highest picks for Miami this year are Texas guys in Cam Ward and Elijah Arroyo. So it's one of those states that you can't keep all the talent home if you're the Texas schools. And that actually leads me into our next topic here.
Well, before we even get there, I want to get to Chase's question there, Pete. Okay. He's asking, I know this is a crazy question. I appreciate you joining the live show.
I didn't even see this comment. Sorry.
Yeah, no. So he's like, I know this is a crazy question. Can we get both of your on-record predictions for UNC this year? I really do think that this portal window, the second portal window for UNC, now that guys have kind of caught their breath and they've done the initial triage, is going to be huge. I think UNC is going to be a major player. And they've looked earlier I said they didn't get any they didn't get as many highly rated guys. They got the Daniel Houses of the world, the Daniel Kings of the world, Kamari House. They got some big name players. They got the corner from Washington, Thaddeus, we did a video on him. He's a long, talented player. They got impact guys. I'm not saying they didn't, but I think this next portal season where they can really focus their energy, they're going to be swinging big, trying to land impactful players all over. They're going to change the record prediction.
Not an easy schedule though, as I just pulled it up now here to try to give myself an idea of what it looks like. And got TCU week 1 Monday night. So I guess I don't know if that's Labor Day, September 1st weekend, but that's at home against TCU. And then you have UCF at UCF a couple weeks later. You have Charlotte and Richmond in between that, but you got TCU and UCF as a couple tough out of conference games.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult, but they've bolstered the quarterback position between high school and the portal. We've talked a ton about the size they've had on the offensive line. They have a good running back. I think it's going to be I don't say sweeteners, but just the difference makers that individually are going to command a lot of money and are going to bring you over the top. So it's hard for me to predict right now. I think definitely an over 500, right? So I feel confident saying that as we sit here based on their current roster. But I think if I make any prediction, I think when you talk about these spring transfers, you're going to see UNC's name on for not as many players maybe, but more focused on big-time difference-making players. Appreciate you, Chase. I know you're excited. We're excited too. So I made so many UNC videos because this is like the biggest story around just to see how these guys can translate what they do in the NFL to the college level. Appreciate you. Nice avatar, by the way, Paulie Walnuts. So anyway, shout out to you, Chase.
So as I was alluding to, Texas is not a state that has for as many top programs as there are. There's so much talent there. You're just not going to be able to keep it all home. The state of Florida is very similar in that respect. And there's a program that has been taking advantage of it for years, and it doesn't seem like they're stopping anytime soon. Illinois, with another good get in the state of Florida, running back Javari Barnett becomes the 11th commitment in this class for Illinois. And this is another class right now early on it's ranked 11th in the country. You have a couple highly rated guys, Victor Singleton kind of being the star of the class right now as the number 1 player in the state of Ohio. But to me, excuse me, I don't.
There we are. Hey everybody. I'm back. This is why it's called Group Chat Live, not Group Chat post-production. We are talking here Illinois football.
There we go. Back. I don't know what happened there. I apologize about
We're back. The good news is Javari Barnett did not decommit.
Yeah.
He's still going to Illinois.
So let's take it from the top. Javari Barnett, a guy from the state of Florida that Illinois has been very successful in over the years. Great track record there in the state. This is now the 11th commit of the class, number 11th ranked class in the country right now. So strong start for Illinois. Victor Singleton kind of as the star of the show, number 1 player in the state of Ohio. So great start for Illinois, and going back to a place they're very comfortable with in the state of Florida as I pull up the tape here on Javari Barnett.
Yeah, you talk about Thad Ward, the running back coach brought this in, started his career at Florida A&M as a graduate assistant, also at Tallahassee Rickards in Florida as a high school coach, graduated from UCF. So the Florida ties with him are very strong. And with Javari Barnett out of Tampa Bay Tech, big guy, verified 11.5, 200 pounds, 11.06 meters, which is nice speed. That'll be in that 4.5, 4.6 range. He could also get faster as time goes on. But I think the size and the speed stand out, dealt with an injury, but was able to get through it. And it just goes to that Florida connection. As we see, we look at Barnett, they got listed at 6'1", 202. Again, his verified time was 5'11.5". You don't know if that's out of date. Tampa Bay Tech, good program. They just said 5-star Dallas Wilson to the Florida Gators. But here you see size, and then here's the track, right? There's that 11.06 speed, which I think if you try to translate it, you're talking about probably like I said, 4.5, 4.6 with the ability to get bigger, better. But man, he has size. He has.
These are only 3-game highlights, by the way.
Like I said, dealing with an injury, which may have lessened his recruiting impact a little bit. But Thad Ward, with those Florida ties, I'm sure had the inside info. He's not going to get scared away by just limited film, limited experience due to injury. He sees the talent. He knows what can be when he gets him in his program. Straight uphill, right? I mean, this guy's running uphill, breaking tackles, getting to that speed. I think he's got more than enough size to play in the Big Ten. He really is a good-looking kid. I got to think he's 200. Just, it's always tricky with weights, but just looking at him, knowing the competition he's playing there at Tampa Bay Tech, this is real big boy football, and he's not dancing quite at all.
He reminds me of a back who had a lot of success in his career at Maryland and now is at Indiana, Roman Hemby, built similarly. I would say same kind of height, and the speed looks similar too, because Hemby can run, but it's as a bigger back, they don't always look like they're moving all that fast, but once they get to that open field, they're moving.
Yeah, remember, there's a 3-game highlight, like you said. So I know some people see these highlight like this, like, why is he not scoring touchdowns after a minute? It's one game, but you see the traits. I mean, look at the power there to bounce off and then get the speed to the sideline. And we talked a lot about the Florida connections. Why do we talk so much about Florida and Illinois? Jerzon Newton, Devon Witherspoon, the Brown brothers, who are originally from Canada but played high school football in Florida. Quan Martin, Kirby Joseph. These are draft picks in recent years. Some of them are extremely impactful NFL players from the state of Florida and Illinois. Gabe Akas on this team. Torrey Cox, Xavier Scott.
I was going to say, not to get completely off topic here, but I think we should probably talk about what Taiwan Cox did this weekend. State of Florida, he's a commitment for this class, what he did on the track, but we'll get to that in a second.
Well, let's talk about it, man, because South Florida in particular has been very good to Illinois. We talk about the defensive backfield with Scott and Cox, but yeah, this guy, what his PR before was a 29.4 in the 200 meters and a 10.79 on the 100 meters. Has he exceeded those times?
Well, what he did this weekend was the 400, and I want to get everything right because I'm not extremely well versed on track terminology and all that, but this is what it was. It was the 4x400, and he hawked down Quincy Wilson, the Olympian.
Wow.
So I'm gonna pull up the video right now. It's we should have actually probably talked about this before but it actually comes in perfectly with this right here. But I meant to send it to you over the weekend, but here it is. He splits 45-14 to run down Quincy Wilson. So here he is.
So yeah, we're talking Illinois, Florida boys. We got to give you the full experience there.
And he's a commit. So
yeah,
but here he is. I mean, here he is with the blue sleeve, Taiwan Cox. You can
good
see
size
on him too. He looks like a football player. And this is Quincy Wilson, who ran in the Olympics for the U.S.
So, Torrey Cox, obviously one of the better players on Illinois' team. Someone I think we'll be talking about in the NFL next year. South Florida guy, Taiwan Cox's brother, just like Xavier Scott, another South Florida guy. So this is the kind of speed. This is why you come down to the state of Florida if you're Illinois. You know they're going to build the offensive line. You know they're going to get some big physical linebackers.
But look at this.
But yeah, you come down to Florida for this kind of speed. By the way, great endurance. This is not just a pure sprint. This is a 400-meter. This is a man's race, and you're seeing some major league endurance here by Cox. He's fired up, man. So a lot of speed coming from the state of Florida to Champaign, and Taiwan Cox is one. You'll get him in 2025, joining his brother this season. And then Javari Barnett, of course, joining next season, giving you a running back with some physicality and some speed. Illinois, man, number 11 class in America right now. And 4 players from Florida, 3 from Illinois, 2 from Ohio, 1 from Nebraska, 1 from Texas. We'll see if they can keep the momentum going. I think they will, because I think they'll be very good on the field. So I think that's going to keep these kids in the fold and allow them to add players as well. Really excited about what is happening in Champaign. It's a model that makes sense where you get the trenches. Of course, Coach is going to build that up. That is his bread and butter. You're keeping local guys home. You're getting guys from nearby Midwestern states. And when you need that speed and that skill, you go down south to South Florida. There's still skill in the Midwest, but you're going to get better defensive backs on average coming down south, and explosive running backs as well, explosive receivers, which Pat Bryant, Florida guy. You talked about Kenyon Alston from Orlando in this class, Florida guy. Of course, Michael Clayton, the quarterback, who I've seen a bunch of times, really like him, big size, has an arm, very well battle tested down here. I think he's going to be a really good quarterback. So the Florida invasion continues. And I know folks in Illinois are happy to welcome him up north instead of those guys coming down south to the west coast of Florida, like we're used to seeing Chicago people and Midwesterners come down to Naples and all that. Now we're sending our Florida boys up north, and it's going to lead to some really good football.
Illinois fans, remember to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy this sort of content. We've done a lot of stuff on Illinois this spring and going to continue into the summer and into the season. So moving along here, we will talk about a program that was a late change here in terms of the coaching carousel, which has led to this move at the quarterback spot. Drew Pine, former Notre Dame, Arizona State, Missouri quarterback, is headed to Bowling Green. And Eddie George, who's now the head coach over there, looks like he has this guy in Pine, ton of experience. And if you're him, you have to be pretty excited about this situation, stepping in as a starter. Coming from Missouri, where it didn't look like he was necessarily going to win that job as some other guys have emerged, but can really provide a lot of value to Eddie George in year one here.
Yeah, I think Horn and Prbula, especially Prbula, I think had the leg out there. But Pine is somebody who, going into the G5 level, is going to bring just a world of experience. He's been a winning quarterback, 8-2 in 10 games as a starting quarterback for Notre Dame, 2,000 yards, 22 touchdowns, 6 picks in his last season. That's strong numbers. Last year was more of a part-time role, but he did have an incredible comeback against Oklahoma. The only game he actually started the whole game, November 9th, 391 yards, 3 touchdowns, 61% passing on the season overall. So he's somebody who I think, the thing that surprised me the most probably was the fact they had 2 years of eligibility after being at Arizona State, Notre Dame, Missouri. Still got 2 years left. So the experience and the age factor is huge. And shout out to Eddie George, man. Eddie George got to Tennessee State, built them up slowly, ultimately winning a conference championship, their first trip to the playoff in over a decade. So this is not just Eddie George, the running back that we saw at Ohio State and Tennessee Titans. This is the coach who took a program that wasn't doing well, built them into something that is strong. Now going into Bowling Green at the FBS level and getting a quarterback that he can trust. Won't join him for spring because he's already had his spring there with Missouri, but we'll join him in the summer. We'll join him in for the rest of the year. And of course is going to hit the ground running because of the wealth of experience that he brings.
And look, this is a Bowling Green situation that he's stepping into, as he said, that he wanted to have the opportunity to go play for Eddie George. He said the returning offensive line is strong and experienced, and a program that's very good, played in 3 straight bowl games, and can compete for a championship. They finished 3rd in the MAC last year, and Scott Loeffler left because the Eagles hired him, right? So it's not like you're talking about a guy who was fired. So the program has been in a healthy spot. So you're coming in, if you're Eddie George, and you're saying, all right, this isn't a complete rebuild in terms of where we are in the scope of the conference. And if you're Pine, you're saying, man, the guy who's leaving here is an offensive coach. So the personnel here can't be that bad. And you're bringing in Eddie George, who, at the end of the day, I'm sure he wants to have an opportunity to play at the next level. And he's probably thinking, if I can do a good job here, then the connections with Coach George and all that can help my standing at the next level. So I think this could be potentially a win-win for everybody.
I think so. And Bowling Green not only did they have a good season, they were close to some upsets. I remember that Penn State game, man. They gave Penn State everything they could handle.
Texas A&M. Yeah.
So they're close. And a guy like this in Pine, who has won a lot of games, I'm talking about 9 wins at the highest levels of football, is nothing to sneeze at. And then the fact that, given the competition, and then the fact that he's just old, right? 24 years old, 2 years old. He's going to be like one of these like Chris Wanke type quarterbacks by the time he graduates, but that's fine. He'll have experience. Guys will gravitate towards him because they know he's been there before, and he's going to step right in. It's not ideal that he missed spring, but the fact that he has so much experience, I think, makes you feel better. He'll be enrolling here in a month, so it's not like he's going to be too much of a late arrival. I think it is a big boost for Eddie George, taking something that was not broken, trying to elevate that program like he did at Tennessee State. He'll do it differently than Deion Sanders. It's not going to be as flashy up there in the glass capital of the world near Toledo, Ohio. It's not going to be as flashy as you may have seen with Deion, But I think the fact that he has credibility, that he's not a rookie, he coached at the FCS level, at the HBCU level, and succeeded and built something and has learned lessons along the way, I think is huge. I'm excited to see how this plays out with Eddie George, just because Deion was such a one-off kind of thing. With Eddie George having success at Tennessee State, if he has success here at Bowling Green in the MAC, now you might see more former players of that caliber do it this way, elevate an HBCU program, and then have success at the FBS level. Hopefully that's what you see with Eddie George and Bowling Green. Drew Pine, big step in the right direction.
Yeah, and Bowling Green's quarterback last year, Connor Bazelak, is a former Missouri guy as well. So a little bit of a tie there. He did have a stop at Indiana in between Missouri and Bowling Green, but hey, that's the name of the game these days. You're going to see a lot of these journeymen who, for whatever reason, it didn't work out at previous stops. But I think this could be a really good one for all sides, as we've talked about. So, Bowling Green fans, I know you're excited about everything that Coach George is doing. We're going to have you guys covered here as we head into the summertime. Expect them to be pretty aggressive here in the portal, considering that late coaching move as well. Probably going to be more aggressive than anyone, I would think, out there in terms of just the sheer numbers that they bring in. So we'll be very interested to keep a close eye on that.
And this helps because you can tell receivers, hey, or tight ends, whoever, running backs, offensive linemen, you got a veteran proven quarterback that's won at the power forward level that's going to be at the helm. You have faith that this is not going to be some sort of total rebuild job. We're trying to hit the ground running and elevate what is already a solid program to that next level.
All right. Appreciate everyone who's been on with us live. As you can see, we're getting back in the rhythm here. We got double digits back live here. So getting back to where we want to be. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, everybody. And thank you all for watching.